Hello everyone, and welcome back to Hello Word. I am Alex, your cheerful language companion, and I am delighted to have you all here today. This episode is all about describing people in English. We will explore words that come in handy when you want to comment on someone's appearance, whether you are chatting with a friend, meeting someone new, or writing a quick note about someone you have seen. Our theme is everyday situations in which you might need to say something like he has a nice beard, or she looks pretty in that outfit. We will break everything down in a simple way so that you can remember these words more easily. If you want to get better at using descriptive words, then this episode is right up your street. Before we dive in, I want to remind you of a few useful tips that will boost your learning experience. First, it is always good to practice speaking out loud. Hearing your own voice saying new vocabulary helps your mind and tongue work together, which builds your confidence. Second, keep a small notebook or a phone app handy where you can jot down any new words or expressions you learn. Jotting things down is a powerful way to make them stick in your memory. Finally, do not forget to use these words in your daily life. Language is alive, and the more you interact with these expressions, the easier it becomes for you to recall them when you need them. Grab a comfortable seat, relax, and let's get started with our collection of descriptive English words. Beard is a word that refers to the hair grown on a man's chin, jaw, and cheeks. Many people choose to keep their beard neatly trimmed, while others let it grow for a more rugged look. You might say, my uncle has a long beard that he combs every morning, or he shaved his beard off for summer. The word is used in daily conversation to comment on someone's facial hairstyle or appearance. For instance, you might hear, I like how that actor always sports a full beard. Beards can range from a short stubble to a long and luxurious style, but in every case, the hair covering the lower part of the face is what we call a beard. Mustache is another word that describes facial hair, but this time it is specifically the hair grown on the area between the upper lip and the nose. Some people find mustaches stylish, while others may not like the maintenance they require. You can hear phrases like, he decided to grow a mustache during the holidays, or she thinks a mustache makes him look older. In daily life, you might comment, that barista has a neat mustache, or my grandfather always maintained a thick mustache. Whether it is thin and carefully groomed or big and bushy, a mustache can be a distinctive way for someone to express their personal style. Young is a word we use when we want to talk about a person who is in an early stage of life or does not seem old. For example, she is still very young, so she has a lot to learn, or he feels young at heart, even though he is in his 50s. The word can also be used to describe someone who appears youthful, such as, you look so young in that picture from your vacation. It often serves to highlight youthfulness, inexperience, or a sense of energy and potential. When learning English, you may come across phrases like, he is too young to drive, which suggests that the person has not reached the legal age to hold a driving license. Old is the opposite of young and describes someone who has reached a later stage in life. It can also refer to something that has existed for a long time. You might say, my grandmother is quite old, but she still loves to dance, or that building is very old and full of history. In daily conversation, you could hear statements like, do not call me old. I am just experienced, or she might be old, but she is the sharpest person in the room. Remember that when describing people, some may feel sensitive about age, so use the word in a polite context and be aware of how your tone may be received. Muscular is used to describe someone who has well-developed muscles or appears strong. You might use it when talking about athletes, gym enthusiasts, or anyone with a visibly fit physique. For instance, you could say, my neighbor is very muscular because he lifts weights every morning, or she joined the sports club, and now she is looking more muscular every day. This word often focuses on the physical build of a person, highlighting their strength or fitness level. You might also encounter it in expressions like, "That actor is known for his muscular roles," meaning he often plays characters who are visibly strong or athletic. Braces is a term for the orthodontic appliance used to straighten teeth. They usually consist of metal brackets attached to the teeth and connected by wires. You might say, "My dentist told me I need braces to fix my crooked teeth," or "He just got his braces removed and now his smile looks amazing." Braces can also be referred to as orthodontic braces in more formal contexts, but in everyday speech, people will typically just say braces. Sample conversation lines include, "She wears braces to align her teeth," or "He had braces for 2 years back in high school." Pale is an adjective that describes someone whose skin has a lighter shade than usual, often due to lack of exposure to the sun or because of feeling unwell. For example, "You look a bit pale." "Are you feeling all right?" Or "He is naturally pale, so he uses sunscreen even in mild weather." In everyday contexts, you might hear, "After a long winter, most of us look quite pale," or "She went pale when she heard the bad news." The word can also suggest a certain softness in color, so you might even say, "I like pale colors," though that is a less common usage when talking about people. Tanned indicates skin that has become darker due to exposure to the sun or other sources like tanning beds. People often get a tan in the summer when they spend time outdoors. You could say, "She came back from her beach vacation looking very tanned," or "He loves surfing, so he is always tanned by the end of summer." In day-to-day conversation, you might hear, "I got a little tan just from walking around the city," or "My sister prefers to stay out of the sun, so she never really gets tanned." This word is also used to talk about the process of skin darkening, as in, "I am hoping to get tanned during my holiday by the sea." Green eyes refers to eye color that appears in shades of green. The word green is the simple color adjective, and eyes is the noun that it describes. You can hear someone say, "I have always loved people with green eyes," or "Her green eyes stand out whenever she wears certain shades of clothing." Eye color is often used when describing someone's appearance. You might hear comments like, "Many people in my family have green eyes," or "I think those green eyes make him look mysterious." Keep in mind that green eyes can have variations, from a brighter emerald green to a more hazel green. Brown eyes is a phrase that describes eyes with a deep or light brown shade. You might say, "He inherited his father's brown eyes," or "Most people in my country have brown eyes." In everyday conversations, people talk about brown eyes quite often because it is a common eye color around the world. You may also hear lines like, "I love the warmth in her brown eyes," which suggests the speaker finds that eye color friendly or comforting. Brown eyes can appear in many different shades, from very dark brown that is almost black to a honey shade that looks lighter in bright sunshine. Gray eyes describes a relatively rare eye color that can appear to change depending on the lighting or the color of clothing a person wears. You might hear, "My friend has gray eyes that sometimes look blue," or "She has striking gray eyes that everyone notices right away." Describing someone with gray eyes could involve phrases like, "His gray eyes can look almost silver when the sun shines on them." Gray eyes can also carry a sense of mystery, so you might find them highlighted in stories or novels, as in, "The hero of the book has piercing gray eyes that captivate readers." Blue eyes is the phrase you use when someone's eyes are a shade of blue. This could be anything from a very light, almost icy hue to a deeper, darker navy shade. For example, "You have very bright blue eyes," or "His blue eyes look amazing under the sunlight." In everyday conversation, you may say, "I have blue eyes, just like my mother," or "People often comment on my uncle's striking blue eyes." Like the other eye color expressions, blue eyes is straightforward. The adjective blue describes the noun eyes. It is a frequent topic of small talk if you are describing people or making friendly observations. Attractive is used to describe someone who is pleasing to the eye or appealing in general. This word can apply to both men and women, and it does not solely focus on appearance, although it often does. For instance, you could say, "I find him very attractive because of his confidence," or "she is an attractive person," both inside and out. In casual discussions, you might hear, "I think that singer is very attractive," or "my friend is looking attractive tonight with that new hairstyle." The word attractive carries a tone of admiration and positivity when used to talk about someone's looks or general vibe. Pretty is another way to describe someone who is pleasing to the eye, most commonly referring to women or girls. However, it can also describe objects, places, or even ideas, such as a pretty dress or a pretty scene. In everyday conversation, you might hear, "She is so pretty in that photo," or "that flower arrangement is pretty." When referring to people, the word often emphasizes a gentle or delicate beauty. It is also used in casual phrases like, "You look pretty today," or "that color is really pretty on you." This word conveys a sweet sense of attractiveness and is usually considered a compliment. Handsome is a word generally used to describe a man who is good-looking. However, in some contexts, you might also hear it used for women in a more formal or literary sense. Commonly, though, you will hear statements like, "He is so handsome in that suit," or "She said her husband is handsome because he always takes good care of himself." The typical usage is for men, signaling a refined or striking appearance. People might say, "That actor is very handsome," or "My grandfather was quite handsome in his youth." Handsome often conveys a sense of elegance or strong features, making it a flattering term. To judge somebody by his or her appearance describes the act of forming an opinion about a person solely based on how they look on the outside. This phrase can be considered a caution or criticism about making snap decisions without getting to know the person. In daily conversation, you may hear, "It is unfair to judge somebody by his or her appearance because you never know their story," or "We should try not to judge somebody by appearance alone." It emphasizes the importance of looking beyond physical features and appreciating who someone is as an individual. Thin refers to someone whose body has very little fat or something that is not thick in dimension. When describing a person, you might say, "She is quite thin, so those pants are a perfect fit for her," or "He has been eating healthy and is looking thin these days." Thin is purely an observation about a person's weight or overall build and does not necessarily imply anything else about their health. In common conversation, you can hear, "That model is very thin," or "He has a thin figure and sometimes struggles to find clothes that fit." Fat is an adjective used to describe someone who has more body weight or body fat than average. This word can be sensitive, so you should be mindful of how you use it. You might hear, "My childhood cat was very fat," or "People used to call him fat when he was a kid, but he has changed a lot since then." In more polite conversation, alternatives like overweight are often used. Nonetheless, you may encounter the word in daily life, such as, "The doctor said I have too much body fat," or "That dog is too fat, so the vet recommended exercise." Short is an adjective that describes someone who is not tall in terms of height. You might say, "She is short compared to her classmates," or "He has always been the shortest one in the family." In casual conversation, people use short to highlight differences in height or to make observations about children or adults, such as, "She felt short standing next to the basketball players." It can also apply to things beyond a person's height, like clothing or hair. For example, "She has short hair now." But when specifically talking about describing a person, short focuses on height. Tall is the word we use when someone has a greater height than average. You may hear, "My brother is so tall he has to duck when going through low doorways," or she is the tallest person in her group of friends. In everyday language, you might also say, that basketball player is extremely tall, or people are surprised by how tall I am. Like short, tall is primarily used for height, and you can also use it for objects, such as a tall building, though describing people is a frequent use. When used to comment on a person, it often implies they are significantly above average height. Scar refers to a mark left on the skin after a wound has healed. It could be from a cut, a burn, or a surgical incision. You might hear, I have a scar on my knee from falling off my bike, or she feels self-conscious about the scar on her face. In everyday conversation, you could say, that scar on his arm reminds him of the time he had an accident. Sometimes people share stories about how they got their scars, and it can be a memorable part of describing someone. A scar might be large or small, and it can fade over time, but often it remains as a lasting reminder of past injuries. Now that we have explored all these words for describing people, let's briefly recap why these terms are so useful and how you can practice them. Whether you are telling a friend about a relative's new beard or pointing out that someone looks muscular, these descriptions will add depth to your English conversations. They help paint a clear picture of what you see, so the listener can imagine the person you are describing. By combining these words, you can develop richer sentences, such as, my uncle has a big beard, is quite muscular, and always has a tanned complexion. This will make your speech more lively and interesting. It is also helpful to pair these descriptive words with proper tone and context, since people often care a lot about how their appearance is discussed. As we wrap up, I want to thank you for tuning into Hello Word. If you found these descriptions and examples helpful, please consider subscribing to our podcast so you can receive notifications about new episodes. We would also love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a review and share your thoughts. Let us know which words you find most challenging or interesting. Your feedback is invaluable in helping us create more episodes that boost your language skills in a fun and effective way. That is all for today's episode. I hope you feel more confident describing people in English, whether you are talking about beards, scars, or eye color. Remember, practice makes perfect. Use these words in your daily routine by describing people you see on television, in your favorite movies, or in your own life. The more you speak and write these words, the more natural they will feel. Thank you again for joining me, Alex, on Hello Word. Wishing you happy learning, and I will see you next time.